My name is Meredith Ines. I am a third year student studying medical sciences at the College of Medicine. And today I want to share with you all my psych presentation entitled Heroism and the Ohio Innocence Project. This presentation was inspired by the book Blind Injustice by Mark Godsey, and I'll show you it right here. This is a great book, really interesting, and just talks about the different psychological principles that sort of go behind why wrongful convictions happen in this country. So to start off, I just want to talk about what is heroism and define it for myself. So heroism to me is doing the right thing when everyone else seems to be really just okay with doing the wrong thing. I think heroism is caring about other humans. I think it's seeing the humanity in any situation. And it's also breaking through the cognitive biases that we have that may force us to think one way versus the other way, when really we need to approach things from a more neutral perspective. So, the Ohio Innocence Project, I would consider this a heroic organization. And the reason for this is that their goal is to exonerate people in Ohio who've been wrongfully convicted and are serving time in prison. They often do this using DNA evidence that kind of just sat around for years and years and was never tested. And so far, they've exonerated 28 people who have served a combined total of 525 years behind bars for crimes that they didn't commit, which is just crazy to me. And that's just in Ohio. There's innocence projects all over the country that are doing similar work. They do this by recognizing the flaws in the case that caused the person to be wrongfully convicted in the first place, and then they bring these flaws and new evidence into court for either a new trial or using other sort of methods to get this person to be exonerated. They do this by overcoming systemic opposition and procedural bars to get innocent people out of jail. So, unfortunately, due to the nature of this work, some people view it as opposing to a lot of the good work that people do to put the bad guys in prison, which really, I mean, these two things can be working together, and they should be. We should be putting the bad people away, and we should be helping get the people out that should not be there in prison in the first place. So, first of all, I want to just quickly touch on some of the psychology of wrongful conviction. So some of the principles that go behind, why this happens in the first place. And a lot of these can actually be found in the book Blind Injustice. I will just touch on them briefly. So the first is denial. So in the criminal justice system, there are many different key players. One of which is prosecutors. There's also police officers. There's a lot of moving pieces in order to make the system run smoothly. And a lot of times there's just this denial where people don't believe that there's a problem. 99 bad guys go to prison, but one person who's actually innocent goes to prison and they say, woohoo, we got 99 bad guys. I mean, that makes sense, but at the same time, you can still improve. And then they also, people would say, oh, there's no way I messed up this case 20 years ago. Well, there really is no way that you messed up, then it should be fine if another outside organization comes in and checks your work. And then along with denial comes with the evils of bureaucracy. So, when you think about the criminal justice system, you think of, there's a lot of people going through it, bad things are happening, people make mistakes, and when they do make mistakes, they are sometimes labeled as numbers, they're dehumanized, and this just causes problems when we don't see other individuals as humans, and rather we just see them as numbers. The next problem, psychological principle, is ambition. So not necessarily a bad thing, but can definitely get in the way of doing a proper and thorough job when prosecuting someone for a crime. So a lot of it is driven by the election of our judges and prosecutors. So in this country, we do elect a lot of these individuals, and when we do that, they want to appear tough on crime so that they can get reelected. So this mentality, while it's great, while it's really good that we're putting away, the bad people, you still have to be cognizant of the fact that you could still be, there is still room to improve. Also, there is inherent inequity between the prosecution and defense. That's just the way that our system is set up. Unfortunately, prosecution has a lot more resources and money available to, call in expert witnesses and call in, different things for trial to help their side of the story seem a little more favorable to the jury. And again, juries are not the great equalizer. So when you think about, coming in for a jury, you're sitting there and you see this person in front of you, and it's like, well, obviously they've done something to make them here. So, the whole innocent until proven guilty thing is thrown away a little bit. Next is bias. Confirmation bias is a big problem. Forensic evidence isn't purely objective, as we'd like to think it is. This evidence is sent off to the lab, and a lot of times there's like a little like, oh, can you confirm that this evidence is X? And when you obviously put that information behind it, it's not blinded anymore, and there's a probability for bias to sort of slip in there, and of course racial bias, which is inherent in our system as well. Finally, memory. I've always thought this is incredibly interesting. So our memories are malleable. We've talked about this in class. And when somebody comes in, for example, to do an eyewitness identification, and they're looking at, a group of pictures of potential suspects, and they're looking at these pictures and comparing them and, thinking like, oh, is this who I saw? Is this who I saw? As they're doing that, they're changing their memory. They are sort of changing what occurred in their mind's eye. And then also false memories. So false memories can be implanted by during interrogation practices, and those can lead to false confessions. So people unfortunately do confess to things that they did not do, and that creates so many other problems for people like the Ohio Innocence Project who need to sort of backtrack on that. Next is tunnel vision. So when these players in the system have their eyes on a suspect, they tend to focus all of their energy on finding evidence that will point to that person as being the true perpetrator. So a great example would be the Amanda Knox case, where all of the evidence that they were finding didn't really point to Amanda Knox, so they just kept trying to find more. They needed something to point to Amanda. They weren't able to find it at the end. Then there's other cases such as the Norfolk Four, where at first only one person was accused of this crime, but then the DNA did not match that individual that was found at the scene of the crime, so this person implicated another individual who implicated more and more individuals, and the police refused to see, oh, maybe we didn't get the right guy to begin with. So what does this mean? So we are humans, and because of that, all these psychological principles will apply to us, and we're going to have these biases. We're going to have malleable memory. Like this is how it is. But the Ohio Innocence Project and other programs are working together to actively combat the fact that we aren't perfect as humans, and so we can get to the actual truth behind some of these wrongful convictions, and I think that is a really true example of heroism. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Bye-bye.